So I've recently got engaged to my fiance, Emily. We had dated for a while, but we had a pretty quick engagement. And the bad part about that was that I didn't actually get to spend a lot of quality time with her parents. One weekend we actually had to spend a lot of time together, and before we were supposed to leave, we were going to get breakfast together as a family. But the morning of, I received a text from her mother saying, "We would appreciate it if you didn't come to breakfast with us." And immediately my reaction was, oh my gosh, this woman hates me, this family hates me, they're trying to convince Emily not to marry me, or worse, both. And I held on to that and didn't tell Emily until a few months later when we got together again, and I said something very fast to her, and I said, "It wouldn't surprise me if they didn't like me." And Emily immediately snaps. She says, "What do you mean they don't like you?" I was like, well, I told her the story and just said, no, you don't understand. I had just been on a trip. I hadn't seen my parents for over a year, and they just wanted time with me alone as their daughter. They love you, and they're so glad that you married me, and they're part of this family. So my immediate reaction was they didn't like me, but the opposite was true. My perception of myself in their shoes is exactly what I want to talk about tonight.
So my story brings up a great example about how our feelings about how others perceive us, or our metaperceptions, are often not how we actually perceive them. One source defines metaperceptions as the ability to form ideas of what social partners think of us during our social interactions. So essentially you have your view of yourself and a perception of how others view you. And when those two views don't match up, it can cause some discomfort, some insecurity, and maybe even some low self-esteem. But metaperceptions can be good because if we don't have them, if we don't care about how other people see us, then what's keeping us from acting like assholes all the time, right?
To support that, a source says, accurate metaperceptions may help individuals gain self-knowledge and make behavioral changes in response to social partners' cues. They go on to say that simply taking a peer's perspective can increase reciprocity in social interactions. So while metaperceptions can be good and necessary for successful work relationships, they can also get in the way of having effective, productive relationships if they get out of hand or they become unrealistic, especially in the workplace.
So one source we looked at talked about how metaperceptions do not really have consequences for one's individual behavior, but also for one's behavior as the member of a group.
Now, this is a very silly kind of example, but this plays out very easily in the office. Imagine you send out an email, and that email sounds a little intense in your mind, but the person that you sent it to might not think anything of it, or they could think the other way around, right? These metaperceptions are actually the forethought of their reaction to you. What is this person thinking about me?
So in an example like this, it's very easy to see how productivity can be negatively affected when we start to overanalyze the metaperceptions that we have. Working relationships require a little bit of task conflict and vulnerability, but they lack the history and security that we normally feel in our close personal relationships. So without that feeling of security in a relationship, our feelings about our metaperceptions in work situations can be heightened. So this dissonance can lead us to get too caught up in the way we were feeling and make us want to isolate ourselves, effectively weakening our work connections, meaning that productivity will suffer in the long run.
So how can we get out of this mental cage of isolation? How can we bring our perceptions and our metaperceptions closer together? The real thing is that we need to communicate how we're feeling. Communication is important because unless we ever bring those feelings, those perceptions into the air, the other person will never know that we actually think that they think that we think that they hate them, which is an extremely intense mess to think about, but it's true. The hard part is the vulnerability between that. To tell the truth, to be vulnerable, to bring out the fact that this is how I actually feel. It's hard, but it's good in relationships because either one, it is true, and we are less good than we think we are, or we're just too hard on ourselves. So in this opportunity to foster relationships, we have the chance to either grow or to forgive each other or ourselves. When we use metaperceptions, we have an opportunity to see what people really do think about us. And in that is a great opportunity to grow in a relationship with other people. Thank you so much.